Hey, my name is Robb Montgomerry. I'm the founder of the Smart Film School. Like I said, I filmed that with my iPhone last week. I edited it in the car while my wife drove, and it was uploaded to YouTube moments after being filmed. And I'm going to teach you guys how to do that when you come in person and we're doing the workshop. But what I wanted to do today was kind of just give you some more inspiration, give you some more language, and share with you some many different ways that you can use your smartphone to tell stories with pictures. So this first screen, this is me, by the way, on Twitter and actually on top of a mountain and at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. But that's where you'll find me on Twitter. What I want you to do is on your phone, because I have so much video to show, it's really not great to show it in a webinar. But what I've done is I've created a private playlist. Oh yeah. Speaking of cameras, hey, I'm Rob. I'm in Berlin. You guys are where you are. And what I want you to do is open up on your phone this YouTube playlist. And the way you can get to this YouTube playlist is go to bit.ly/Rob-videos. And make sure that you put in the capital R and the capital V. When you do that, don't play any video. If it starts autoplaying, just pause it right away. Because as I go through this presentation, I'm going to prompt you. We're all going to play that video at that right time in the presentation. That way you'll have it right on your phone and you'll see exactly what that mobile experience looks like right on your phone, rather than playing it through the webinar, which can be dodgy when you're playing video. So this should give you the great user experience. I just want to keep this up on the screen and make sure that everyone has bit.ly/Rob-videos. I think what I'll do, just to be smart here, is I will copy that link over to the chat window, because there might be some latecomers. I'm just going to say, open this on your phone. And there it is. I put the link over there in the chat. So, okay, are we ready to move forward? Great. That's what your phone should look like. Now we can just go back to the presentation and talk about just the many ways that videos are being used, just particularly by young people. That this generation of media consumers are also media creators, and they will create and share video of just about any length, whether it's 1 second Boomerang, video file, or binging on 13 hours of Netflix for their favorite series. And everywhere in between, we've got 10 seconds for Snapchats, 6 seconds for Vine, 15 seconds for Instagram. You can upload and edit video in Twitter natively. Not a lot of people know that, but it's really great. And about the average of 1 minute, 1 minute 30 on Facebook seems to be the sweet spot. Anything longer tends to go to YouTube. And anything really high quality, like my HD Dune Bash, well, that gets on Vimeo, and it's a great playback experience. So, because there's so many different lengths of video, for different types of video content, different experiences, there's also more questions as filmmakers and as media makers that we have to answer. Not the least of which is that video going to be horizontal? Is it going to be square? Is it going to be vertical? Do we want to start our story at the beginning of time and move people forward? Or do we want to start at a moment of high energy and then pull people back and forward through a timeline? Do we expect interactivity to be part of the experience? Do we expect to do an episodic or serialized presentation of our narrative? All great questions, and that's what kind of leads us to some of the creative solutions. Creative solutions to the question I will ask you guys again and again. Because if you can answer this question, you can be successful making films that people engage with. And the question is, can you tell a story in 30 seconds? If you learn how to write in pictures and assemble, then yeah, you can tell a story in 30 seconds. And so now we're going to go to the playlist. We're going to play that first video. And the first video called Story in 30 Seconds. It's like 01. Story in 30 seconds. Okay? In 3, 2, 1, play. All right, now pause that video. Or just wait till it's done. Yeah. Wait till it's done. That's a 30-second story. Now, it's 30 seconds, but what happens there? Well, we introduce characters, and we take a viewer from the bottom of a mountain to the top of the mountain. And we do it all without a script. We're doing it because the pictures are assembled, and they were filmed in a certain way, and they're assembled in a certain way, so that it builds a visual sentence. That's really what I'm asking you. And I keep coming to this question: can you tell a story in 30 seconds? Can you write a visual sentence with your camera? If you can, then that unlocks a lot of storytelling power. Now, the techniques, the technology, well, they support this idea. We are using new language, film language. We are using apps like this, some of which might be familiar, of course, the native camera app or Instagram photos app to organize things. And then we look at some apps that do specific work, like maybe I want to create some text, some animated text. Well, there's apps for that. Or I want to create a collage, or I want to create a graphic. And, you know, in our workshop, we'll go through a few of these apps. And if you have questions, you know, sure I can answer them. And but I try to just keep this very, very from getting away. I like to have a lot of apps on my phone all the time, but I want each app has to kind of earn its space on that home screen. So it has to do a specific job, whether it's editing or filming. And speaking of filming, I mean, this is a picture from a couple months ago. But guess what? I just got some new stuff today from ShoulderPod. And I just started to assemble it. And so now this is what my filmmaking, portable filmmaking rig looks like. There's the iPhone. That's what you might recognize. Here's a professional microphone for $50. Here's a professional lamp. So when I do interviews, I can light up a person's face, about $50. And it's really lightweight. It's really professional feeling. And yeah, I'll have links on my website. I know there'll be questions about this. This is the ShoulderPod R1 and R1 Go equipment. And it's not that expensive, and it just gives you the ability to solve the 3 problems we always have to solve, no matter what size camera we are carrying and filming with. And that is stability, light, and sound. That's all I'm trying to do whenever I look at gear. I'm trying to make my images as stable as possible, as well lit as they need to be, and really well audio recorded. That's going to elevate all the production values and associations that people have with my video stories. And it will be the same with you. And you know, as I've gone into teaching as well as producing with smaller and smaller cameras over the last 10 years, I've really kind of discovered that it's kind of an infinite universe. There are just so many ways to put some of the building blocks together. And particularly now that we're dealing with short formats, different types of aspect ratios, different social media behaviors, that universe just keeps expanding. And I just can barely keep up creating new courses and new lessons, which is something I'm doing all the time. In fact, the footage that you saw at the beginning of this talk was a 30-day field trip I made to Chile, Patagonia, to film material for new courses. So it just is amazing what you can do now with your smartphone. If you start to learn the language, and the language, here's what it's like a brain drawing. This is one of these mind maps. This is if you took like a typical news story, like you would see on broadcast, BBC, Al Jazeera, anyone would do in the traditional broadcast world, and you broke it apart into its core elements. You said at the center there are these 5 things. These are the story elements, visual sequences, pictures that are shot in a certain way that can be assembled to show a process, introduce a location, to transport a viewer from one location to another. Sound bites, in other words, the answers to interview questions from the characters and the subjects of our stories. Narration, this is always optional, but it is commonly used. It's the reporter's voice or the scriptwriter's voice, guiding a viewer through the story narrative. Natural sounds, as well as music, those are also separately recorded and separately mixed into a film project. And of course, graphics. And graphics can mean anything from data visualizations to just simple names and titles over pieces of footage. So those are the core, and those don't really change. Those are the fundamentals. Fundamentals, I mean, are fundamentals. They really do not change across the medium. So if we can get good at those things, then we can unlock at least 10 ways to tell stories with our mobile devices. So now we're getting to the heart of this presentation. Yes, some of these you might be pretty obvious, they're pretty familiar. But it's really important, again, to develop a language so that when we're talking about storytelling with our mobile phone, we're talking about it using the same common terms. Are we talking about live video? Or are we talking about doing real people pop-ups, which are kind of a news package, but kind of adapted for social media? We're not doing walkthroughs, something a little bit more informal where we pull back the curtain. And are we trying to do something more cinematic or something that's done in story cards? Let's look at a few of these. Again, we're going to start getting ready to go back over to the playlist. So have your phone ready and opened up to YouTube. And live streaming, of course, is something that's taken off over this last year really, really powerfully. I'm going to turn my camera off because you don't need to see me. I want you to focus on Jeff. Jeff is being filmed vertically. And, I filmed Jeff Jarvis. This was kind of a good scoop to get at a journalism conference. And it was one of my first or second times using Periscope. And I did solve the stability, light, and sound parts, those fundamentals, so that I could get a really good quality video. So let's play video number 2, Periscope Jarvis. Okay.
The mass market is dead. Dead, I tell you. We've got to figure out what we are instead.
Okay, now we're going to stop that video, and I'm going to come back and talk to you about it. That may not seem like much, but in the moment, and that's what live means, in the moment, it was super relevant, because this was a conference that had a lot of attention in the journalism world. The top people were there. Jeff's one of the top people. And I scooped everybody. I got him as he arrived, live, on my camera, with a stable shot, with a good sound, even though just half a meter away there are 3 people making espresso loudly. Yeah, even with the fact that I couldn't have the best lighting because there's this side backlighting, but still his face is clear. Because I had a little microphone I could put on his lapel, a little lav mic, a low cost one, about $50. I had that little tripod that you saw in the first picture, and I didn't even need the face light, but I was able to get a high quality live stream, and you can too. But it comes down to those fundamentals. So that's important for professional journalists, but just anytime you are somewhere people normally don't go, that's an opportunity to think about, hey, maybe let's do a live video right now. And when we are working with professional newsrooms, I advise broadcasters in Asia and India and of course CNN and New York Times as well. Strategically, what types of video, what are our expectations for different people on staff? What should a general purpose reporter do versus somebody who's like a VJ, somebody who's like the James Bond of video journalism. They can do everything. You expect them to go out there with this kind of rig and file and do interviews and be able to cut on the fly, be able to produce, basically, not just be the reporter asking questions, but they can do everything. Report with their camera, they can find interview subjects, they can interview them, and they can cut it and file it, and they just are machines. Well, those people have a very rare and valuable skill set, and so those people sit at the top of the page. Okay? So, but to really have that work well in an organization, you have to have everyone on your team kind of understand some of the language, like we're sharing in the presentation today. You kind of have in between some specialists. Maybe you've got a live video team. Maybe you've got a live a Mojo team that goes for crisis reporting and so on. You've got some entertainment people who do red carpet, stuff like that. And so that's how strategically we look at some of these opportunities. Because as you can see, just because the camera's small, just because it's attached to a smartphone, in fact, in many cases, it's so much more powerful because it's attached to those apps, because those apps are attached to my social networks. I can do everything, and they're all right here. I don't have to go back to a newsroom. And that's what a VJ can do. They can stay in the field. They can stay longer. They can get deeper. They can get more original stories, talk to more people, and do their best work. But only if you have kind of this holistic view of how video is going to be shaping what you're doing in your organization. If you look at a top news organization like Bild in Germany, Bild is, of course, Europe's largest publisher. They sell 2 million print copies a day, huge online presence. Their reporters have started to use live video as well. And they've started to see some of the benefits from it, including a very high degree of engagement, especially with, I think they've really started doing this with the migrant or / refugee crisis. So they would send reporters and do live updates from where the reporters were meeting people. And of course, Al Jazeera Plus, a digital arm of Al Jazeera, they have an army of mobile reporters that are covering breaking news, predominantly with their iPhones. And you can see they're solving the problem there. They got a little tripod, they got a microphone. There's enough light on the face, but they're getting close. They are really out there pioneering. And sometimes, though, with their live stuff, I've noticed a couple things. And what I'd like you to do is let's go to video number 3, and this is going to be Periscope Al Jazeera Plus. And let's just watch a little bit of that. Maybe not the whole thing, but I want you to watch it for at least the first 30 seconds. Here we go. All right, I'm going to stop it right there. It's about 1 minute of pretty unwatchable or unintelligible video. And it's coming from a professional broadcaster, and you really should. Of course, an audience expects better. What are the problems? Well, the main problem is sound. You know, it's a pretty shaky shot. Okay, you might be able to live with that. There's no reason for it to be vertical. It really hurts the framing. You really can't get the scope of how many people are out in the street. So framing isn't helping here. There's no reason not to film horizontal. There's no reason for them, Al Jazeera of all people, not to have proper microphones. Yeah, and they do have them. We saw it in the picture. So I don't know what fell down on this particular assignment, but and I'm not picking on Al Jazeera because I mean I really applaud them for being brave enough to really go mojo first with mobile reporting. I'm just saying we could all learn from this because here was a great story, you know, and the lead up to this was an interview, and then all you heard was other people talking on the side and interrupting, rah, 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 rah. So it really hurt. It didn't work. It was a fail. Sorry. Moving on. So that's one of the caveats to doing live, you know, you got to be prepared. So just to summarize, avoid vertical framing. You don't need to do it for live. Use an external mic. Put that thing on a tripod, and be sure to stand behind the camera and not in front of the camera. This is not television, y'all. There is a social stream that happens, and the only way you can engage with it is to stand behind the camera. Put the camera on your subjects and get out of the shot. So it's a bit harsh, but I am a professional, and they're professionals. That's what we do. Now listen, this would have helped that interview a lot. $50. Here's a cheap solution. A little lav mic that can go right on the subject. And if you wanted to talk, you can also get two of them and attach them together and attach them to your phone. Problem solved. You want to do a two-shot where you've got two people talking? That's fine. My question is, if you're using something like Periscope, who's managing the social stream? Remember, this is television people doing mobile video. And see, that's always the problem. Because they're just going to translate the knowledge they have and their basically their practices. We need to think a little bit differently. We really need to open up to what mobile looks like, what a professional film camera looks like if it's built around a smartphone. You can get there. I mean, the price has come down. So that means that now you're competing with one. Every kid who's got $400 can be a filmmaker. Has the ability. Doesn't mean they have the language. Just means they have the technical ability to make films. Here's a face lamp that's rechargeable, $90, and it's made by Manfrotto. Shotgun microphone. These new ones that I was just showing you guys. This is a micro video. The same company, Rode, makes these. They make them for DSLRs. They make them for Android and iPhone as well. And you can get the fuzzy dead cat on there, which really helps if you're outside and it's windy. Or if you're at the scene of a fire. Well, I wanted to show you the next video. I want to make sure I'm on the right level. You know what? I'm going to skip this one in the interest of time, and we're going to go to number 5. So the one I want you to go to is 05 Periscope Fire. When you want to, come back to that one, and you can really see that putting a good microphone on with a Periscope, having it horizontal, having it on a tripod, you can get really good quality. You'll also see that here in a news situation, Periscope Fire. Go to the YouTube playlist on your phone, and let's open it up.
Robb Montgomerry in Berlin, where there's been apparently a fire at the Galerie Lafayette, a very famous department store in Berlin, beloved by all Berliners, of course, for its Parisian foods and fashions. We just arrived on the scene, and we're going to go over and try and get a word from the police fire chief about what may have happened here.
All right, let's pause it right there. Because what I want you to realize is that I showed up alone. I didn't have a camera operator. I didn't have an assistant. It's just me. This is breaking news. But it did have a go bag with my tripod and my microphone so that I could just grab that and get on my bicycle and in 10 minutes be at a scene and be interviewing the fire chief before the television station did. And I did it in HD quality. So when you look at that clip, I want you to realize that then I'm also running behind the camera to manage the social stream and interact with the audience. Now that's an extreme example. I'm not saying that's the model. I mean, it's always better to do live with at least 2 people. But as you scrub through that video, you get about to the 2-minute mark. You'll see I've got, or maybe at about where is it about? Yeah, 2 minutes 42. The guy's talking in German. I get him to actually talk to me in English at 3:01. So if you look at that video later on, you'll see it. It's all stable. It's all really good. Framing's okay. Sound is great. And that's what elevates those live broadcasts. I was immediately contacted by news agencies that wanted that feed and wanted those pictures. So it was pretty important to be live when you're breaking news. So when news breaks, that's a great opportunity to go live. Now, story cards. What's a story card? Well, think of them as like trading cards. Think about it. If you could put at-a-glance information, organized it with, iconic picture, great summaries, organized structured data, maybe in the form of tables, and it had a personality. Maybe what I'm describing is a football card or a Pokemon card, or in America we of course traded baseball cards. But think about it as a story form. And in mobile, we see this all the time. In the way that when we go to Google, for example, it'll give us weather at a glance. It'll give us what's nearby, a restaurant listing, a tip, a map. Stories at a glance. Those are story cards. And the BBC does this pretty well with their Instagram feed. If you don't follow BBC on Instagram, you might want to, just to see kind of how they're doing stories in 15 seconds. And these types of story cards, this is really what I want to work with you guys when you do the workshop. So come back to this, because this is really built for the Instagram experience, and it will really challenge you because now you only have 15 seconds, which makes it sound like the question I asked at the beginning of the presentation, can you tell a story in 30 seconds, sound like a luxury, because now you've only got half that time. So, but let's look at how the BBC does it. Let's go to number 6, story cards BBC on our playlist. All right, and now let's pause it, because it just, of course, it loops, and it will just play back. But what we saw there was something that had a lot of structure to it. If you break down and you look at several of these, what you find out what they're doing is they're trying to do a story generally in 3 acts. A great idea. We got it from the Greeks, the 3-act play. So they've got one scene, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, 10 to 12 words. Scene 1. Scene 2, same thing. 3 or 4 seconds, 10 to 12 words. Scene 3, boom, and they're out. And then they open it with a nice headline and an iconic image. So it's got an eye catcher at the beginning, and they end it with their branding, BBC. In between is a 3-act play. That's all happening in 15 seconds. So that's what we want to try to emulate. Is can we find structure? Can we lead people through stories in 3 parts? And can we pay attention to branding, titling, and hashtagging and stuff like that? Pardon me. We're going to move on to the next slide. This is a story card made with a special purpose app. In this case, the Story-O app. Now, I think because I really like the Replay app, I'm going to be working with you guys in person with Replay. But this is Story-O, and it kind of gets the idea of using pictures and making storyography. So let's go to number 7, story cards, chat apps. So there's actually combining two apps, Pick, Play, Post, which is a collage app, and Storyo that creates an animation, a slideshow, if you will, video from your pictures. And you can also annotate it, and also does some charting and mapping functions as well that are optional. Anyways, these are some of the tools that we have in our pocket to do story cards, to do short form micro stories, basically, micro video that's perfect for Instagram. So video collages. This is another expression of a story card, or it can be seen as a different story form. It's got a lot of creative potential. You can use still pictures, you can bring in animated text, you can do all video, and you can divide the frame into however many panes you like, although I tend to think 3 as a maximum is best. And yeah, so you see these sometimes that are built automatically now when you post multiple pictures to Twitter and multiple pictures to Facebook. If you want to get the manual control over that, you need to use an app like Pick, Play, Post, for example. Now, we're going to do this in person, so I'm going to skip over number 8 and see if there's one here that might be. Yeah, let's go to number 9. This is an example of, you want to give an update. Maybe there's some breaking news in your neighborhood, and you want to put it out on Instagram. Here's a way you can use a collage story card form to do that. So let's open up number 9, video collage parking from the YouTube playlist. And that's it. I mean, it's a short story. But what happened there? Well, someone's very expensive Mercedes got towed. It didn't matter if you had a very expensive Mercedes if you parked in the wrong spot in Germany. So I did a time lapse. I filmed that when I saw it, and then I did a close-up of the no parking sign, and then I created a text animation using the Legend app. It just said 09, which means oh no, which means uh-oh. Yep. And then I used an app called Layered that let me put the type over the time lapse. So again, in the breaking news, I want to get an update. I just filmed a time lapse. I was like, oh, this would be cool. And I just made myself a tripod. I just sat down on the code, a spot, and I made myself a tripod and got a steady shot. Okay. So I used a funny headline, gone in 11 seconds, because that's about the length of the time lapse, but it was actually about a minute or two for them to take that car, but not much time. And it's just as a fun way to use 3 pictures, made text, another one which is a static, a close-up, and another one which is a kind of a special kind of piece of footage, a time lapse, and then edit it together completely on my phone while I'm in the scene. And just remind people, hey, the parking police are out. Watch where you park. So there are some keys, some little things to focus in on. One of those is the idea of a title card. And one of the things that if you're sharing, video in particular on a social media channel that does not have autoplay, but I think almost all have autoplay now. I'm not sure about Instagram. Maybe you guys can tell me in chat. Does Instagram now have autoplay? I don't think it does, but Twitter and Facebook do. But if it does not have autoplay, having that first frame gives some context to a potential viewer, might get people to click or watch your video versus ones that don't. So the importance of the first frame of video sometimes is just to have a title card, have that established. And you can make those with Legend. You can use the Layered app to put text over some of your video when you're editing. So that's always good to know. Graphics packages. Now you might not think of this, but I mean, visualizing numbers can be particularly effective at communicating, for example, how hot it is. If there's a heat wave in Berlin, here's of course a collage of 3 images, one of which is a graphic. And there's an app called Viz, V-I-Z, that you can get that creates nice, simple little bar chart or a simple little pie chart. I would avoid the other styles. and they look kind of snappy. They look kind of modern. You can do a color palette, and they don't look like some crummy Excel graphics that you just cut and paste into your phone. So, ability to become really sophisticated with your visual storytelling. Think about when it's best to show information, and whenever you have information in the form of numbers, think graphics. Now, vertical gets a bad rap, and decidedly you can see it's a problem sometimes for moving images. It's not that the vertical display of visual information is a bad thing. Let me give you an example, but it's the moving images that's usually the problem. Movies are horizontal. Movie posters are vertical. Movies have moving pixels, yes, and our eyes are. Let me just turn on my camera here. Eyes. The reason that moving pictures work particularly well in horizontal is because our eyes are spaced horizontally on our head. That means we get all this peripheral information out here. We're not focused on it. We have to actually move our eyes or move our head to understand what's going on with it. We get sensory information from it. When you do it this way, we don't have that same thing. Eyes don't have this. Yeah. So it can be really disorienting. Especially if it's in a long time. But you can get away with it, particularly if it's just a tease. Like in this case, it's a drone shot of the Iceland or Greenland ice melting away, but it also then leads into the vertical presentation of news, which is different than vertical video, guys. Two different things. It incorporates some vertical video, but it's not entirely just a vertical video. So let's look at that. I think I call that number 11, long form multimedia. All right. So what I'm showing you now is actually an app that you can use to simulate what the New York Times did, which is that you can have pictures and videos and narrative text in a scrolling vertical or presentation. The app used is called Storehouse, and it's free. So that's one of the things that you can explore if you want to start telling stories for a vertical scrolling experience. And if you want to see what a finished story looks like on your screen, you can go to this website, bit.ly.com/Berlin-thing. And you can see this story that I produced using, well, in this case, I used an iPad, I used my bicycle, and I used this app called Storehouse. And I recorded over 2 days how to do that story. So that's Berlin. Let me just put that. I will put it right in the chat so you guys can click on it too. And that's bit.ly.com/Berlin-thing. I really want you to look at that because this is the kind of these are the kinds of story forms that are just really native to the mobile experience, not only for playback but for creation. Yeah. We really have now, we've entered this era. I think we've been here for at least 2 years. Not but creating everything mobile to mobile. So we are mobile to mobile media people now. And this, I think, proves it, this multimedia report. And you can see what the New York Times was doing with the Greenland piece, if you Google that. And look at it on your phone, and then look at it on desktop and see how it's a different experience, but it's really smartly packaged together for responsive design. Here I was, here's just a process shot. Here's how I had created that package. There's my bicycle. I'm using it as a tripod. I'm also using it as a dolly to create some smooth motion shots for some of the elements of that story. I also shared this at the making of while it was being made using the ThingLink app, which is a free app that lets you make interactive photos. In other words, I can add web links as hotspots over a picture. And then I can share that on my social media channels. So there you go. There's the complete world working there, not only filming, but editing and promoting with the mobile using the apps that I showed you on the first screen. And don't worry, I'll show you again the list of apps that are used to create these types of. Again, now I'm not the typical guy. Remember, I'm the tip of the pyramid, the VJ guy, and I'm also really trying to explore and experiment with new story points. So that means I'm going to push things right up to the edge. I mean, I'm going to go out there and film in the sand dunes and put my equipment at the edge because I'm going to find out where stuff breaks. Because where stuff breaks is where we learn. What are the possibilities? So I'm not saying you have to do everything I'm doing. Just maybe find one of these story forms might connect with you, the way you see the world, the way you talk about the world, the way you want to show the world. And maybe one of those ways is to do, one of the ways that is kind of native to me is to do it in a cinematic way. And one of the things that's really powerful, especially with the newer iPhones, is the ability to shoot at 240 frames per second. And you might be saying, like, well, I've got a new iPhone. How do I shoot at 240 frames per second? Well, the idea is to know that 240 frames per second in consumer language is called slow-mo. So if you go into the camera and you select slow-mo mode, technically and cinematically what you're doing is you're filming at 8 times speed. So when it's played back, it's 8 times slower. And when things are played back 8 times slower, they can become magical. So one of the cheap and easy ways to start getting more cinematic is not just with the different shots and understanding visual language, but just playing with the actual medium and trying slow-mo. Try filming in slow-mo, that close-up of that steak the next time you're cooking. So let's do that. Let's go. I don't know which one. That cinematic horses, cinematic golf. Let's do golf. Yeah, let's do cinematic golf. That's number 13. And this is just one shot, and I retimed part of it. And so that's just a fun little video, a cinematic update you can make and edit on your phone. You like playing golf with your friend, and she asks you, hey, can you film my swing? I'm losing power off the tee, and I don't know why. Well, okay, so I filmed it, but I filmed it in slow-mo so that we could, study it closely and see, what she was doing. What she was doing was overswinging. She was swinging past parallel. Well, all I did was I took that video and took it into iMovie and sliced it into 3 pieces, into 3 clips. And I let everything stay at slow-mo except the moment of impact. And then I brought that back to real time. And that one simple edit, filming in one simple technique, 5 minutes. And you have a little bit of movie magic that you can share. So think about how slow-mo can do for your storytelling. In this example, where I used slow-mo, I'm using a camera move called a tilt down. I'm starting at a neutral. I'm starting at the clouds, and then I come to a framing of what I want to focus on, which is the palace that's being rebuilt in Berlin. And if we click on cinematic update, that's video number 14, you see how you can combine this idea of slow motion and just one camera trick, in this case a camera move, only one move, down, tilt, down, with a short script. And you can create just a little update of what's happening in the center of Berlin.
Berlin is getting a new city palace. Statues is replacing the palace that was built in the 15th century, changed the next few centuries into a worse. It was nearly destroyed in World War II. It was demolished in the East Germans in 1950.
There you go. One little camera trick, a nice little script, quick and out. Done. Oops, I'm on automatic playback. Let me pause that. Now, a quick hit. I mean, that was a pretty quick hit. It was just a one-element story update, you know. And again, sometimes I'm doing things just as prototypes because it might inspire a reporter or a news organization. Hey, we're going to do a series of those this week. We're going to be reporting from the streets. You know, you do one of these styles, do it often. You tell your audience and you build an expectation. Okay, here's another way to do a quick hit. Here's a couple different ways. One is to just use Twitter. Yeah, just use Twitter. Because when you're in Twitter, you can record individual little clips and edit them. You can move them around, you can delete them, but you can edit it up to 30 seconds. So I did that to make a little explainer video. And this is going to be Quick Hit Build. It is video number 16 on our playlist.
Bild means image or picture in German. It's also Europe's biggest selling newspaper, and they decided to not print any news photos for a special edition this week. They did it ostensibly to protest against reactions from viewers who didn't like seeing a photo of a dead boy washed upon the shore. Do newspapers work without news photos?
A provocative question, right? Especially if the name of your newspaper in German means picture. That's what Bild means in German, picture. So this is the picture newspaper that ran no pictures. And the way I did that was I just narrated as I filmed. So I sketched out a couple of thought lines, and I just tried to do one or two things. And I just did one small rehearsal, and then I went for it. And just each clip, I recorded 5 seconds, and I stopped. And I did the next thing. Okay, what's my next thought? Okay, frame it, do it. And I just, you know, clean and easy, just done. That's one way to do it, using Twitter. Another way is to use an app called Nutshell. And Nutshell's even easier. Now, you can't do voiceover narration, so it's not a good choice if that's what you want to do. But if you want to create this kind of hyper video look with an app that only prompts you to do one thing, which is take 3 pictures. In other words, tap 3 times. You can find that you can still do storytelling on it, because then you can also overlay some text, yeah, or little animations as well. It can be kind of fun. So this is Nutshell, and it's film number 17 on our playlist. Quick Hit Nutshell. Let's go there. Now, it's 3 camera shot sizes, a close-up of the graffiti, a medium shot, which shows a banner, and then the wide shot, which shows the changing nature of this neighborhood in Mitte Berlin. This is an artist squad. It's been here since the socialist times. It was a symbol of the fall of the Berlin Wall, and now you can see that things are changing. There's multi-million-dollar flats going right up next to some of these buildings in central Berlin. So it may not seem like much, but the context is important. And that's what the words say. The pictures say what's happening, and the words just have to support it. So I'm not trying to take pictures to support words. I just need to write words that support these pictures. That's the breakthrough. And you can do that with an app, simple app like Nutshell. And as soon as I showed that, I already had some people, like reporters, using that to report some breaking news that the water was shut off in their town. Yeah, so it's really easy to use. If you want to just try and get started with this, try Nutshell. It's a lot of fun. And of course, Boomerang is kind of Instagram's answer to the live photos from Apple. You can make these short little super quick video hits. They're a little viney, but they go forward and backward. And so they're kind of limited use. And I'm not going to show an example. I just, because it's emerging. It's not really much you can do with it. But it does exist. I want to show you something now I call like newsmakers or real people pop-ups. In other words, it's a way to do a personality profile. If you've got somebody interesting in an event or in your life and you wanted to just kind of do a little feature of them, you could just, it's like a mini documentary where it's just a couple statements from them, but then obviously very strong visual sequences that turn it from just being a video of your friend talking into like a little cinematic piece. And they can just pop up in your social media stream, in your Twitter feed or Facebook page. So real people pop-ups. Let's go to Newsmaker Graffiti. It's film number 20, and we'll play that, and you can see what I mean.
We're going to do a graffiti art. So,
So I'm hoping you're starting to pay attention to some of the details, like the first frame has a title card, right? It also has a face that shows the subject. That I made a conscious choice not to include narration or a piece to camera. In other words, I made a conscious choice as the storyteller saying, I'm not important to the story. I don't need a viewer to have see me or hear my voice. So no script, no piece to camera for me. So I let my subject tell the story. So it means I had to interview them a certain way. Now I do this type of storytelling, and this is really craft, guys. This is like a multi-day workshop to learn how all of the techniques work on this. But it was all done on phone and edited in iMovie. So you can do 2-track editing on the video, and you can have someone talking and then show different pictures on the video track above. So that's some advanced stuff. It is short form, but it has all of the production values and the techniques of something that's much more that usually takes much more time, more people, and bigger equipment. I've done a few of those, but in the interest of time, because gosh, I could talk about this all day, I wanted to get to something that may have tripped you up earlier when I was talking about something called kinograms. 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 Sounds Latin. Yes, cinema writing. Cinema writing. I just created it. Wait, no, I didn't. Kinograms have been around for 90 years, since the dawn of cinema. Because at the dawn of cinema, the technology did not exist for us to synchronize sound and pictures. So what did filmmakers have to do? They had no control over the soundtrack of the movie theater might be playing player piano music. So they found a way to alternate the visual sequence so that people could watch movies silently and get information. Does this start to sound familiar? Let's go look at Kinogram stock market just for a few seconds on our playlist. Now I'm going to tell you what's happening here. I might scrub ahead a little bit. Oops, that's the wrong one. Kinogram stock market. You're going to start to see some of the familiar things like a visual sequence, wide, medium, close. You're going to see title cards, in other words, text on the screen. And you're going to see the filmmaker alternate those visual elements. You're going to see walking shots. You see those all the time in movies and TV. This is 90 years ago. This is a stock market in a boomtown in America. Now, why is that important? Why is that so old? What's important about that? Okay, let's pause the playback and let's move to the next slide. Because that technique is being used every day on your Facebook feed. That's why it's important. Because news organizations like, well, in this case, Al Jazeera, are communicating to you with video that you can consume without bothering the people around you or without broadcasting the fact that you're listening to the news. You may have to use Kinogram storytelling to do it. So let's go to Kinogram AJ Plus and play that. You'll understand, and I'll be quiet to make the effect worthwhile. So if we break that down and we study it, it's clearly a kinogram because audio is muted. It's auto-playing because that's a behavior that is emerged in the last year on Facebook and Twitter. And it's not just subtitles. It's not just like what we're used to when we put on closed captioning on our TV. Sometimes those text animations can be animated. Sometimes they can stop, freeze frame, hold picture, create something. In other words, they're really exploring one of those 5 pillars of the cinematic storytelling, the graphics storytelling layer. And so that kinograms really opens up that channel to do more work and some more possibilities for us because it's super important. The sound narratives are not important. So visual sequences and the graphics layer, all we got. We can do a lot with it, obviously. You can make some kinograms. I've tried a couple experiments. I tried making one. There's an app called Layered. And what you can do is you can bring text elements in, you can fade them up and fade them down. You can I create maybe 3 or 4 because it can get out of hand on a small screen when you're editing. And you can kind of bring things in silently, and it kind of works. I think we're going to see more apps emerging, especially now it's 2016, that will allow more people to create kinograms. Because currently, the stuff you're seeing by AJ Plus and Now This News and Talkative and New York Times and everything, their kinograms, guess what? They're all created in Adobe Premiere. I'm excited when you can do it on your mobile phone. Here's one way that you can create a kinogram. You can create a by the numbers graphic using this app called Legend that lets you animate text. And you can create little pieces of video from that, and you can string those together in a video editing application. So here's one way. Another way that you can do it, just to do a by the numbers. This is an event in Germany called IFA. Don't ask me what it means. What it means is consumer electronics. Okay, gadgets. And let's go to kinogram numbers and open that on our playlist. I'm going to mute it because remember it's a kinogram. But the app that I used to create that, I used a couple different apps. Let me tell you what I did. I used, for assembly, for all my pieces of video, I used Replay because that let me put all my video clips. Some of the video clips were obviously video filmed with the phone. Others were created with Legend, yeah, the animated text, and some were just still pictures. And I assembled them all in Replay. It makes it really easy to make something for Instagram. But it automatically includes music, so but it's not important. It's just music, but now I know how to mute it, so I do that. But I want to make kinograms. So the last, I think this is one of the last ones. Maybe it's number 10, the walkthrough. Yeah, we're almost there. The walkthrough. Anytime you want to take your viewer on a walkthrough, on a tour, or behind the scenes. Sometimes an easy way to do that is in the accelerated video way. It's called a hyperlapse. A hyperlapse is a time lapse, which is normally a piece of video that's, where the camera's locked down in a tripod and it's, interval timed over, a period of time and then compressed into a short video. So that's the lapse part of hyperlapse. The hyper part is the camera moving through three-dimensional space while the time lapse is being recorded. Okay, so that's what makes it hyper. Hyper means this motion. So it's a camera move plus a time lapse. And you can use the Hyperlapse by Instagram app to create this kind of footage. What it does is it helps create very stabilized motion camera tracking shot with your iPhone, because it uses the accelerometer data and the gyro data from the device to help stabilize the footage. So that's one way to do a walkthrough, is literally just walk through using this app to compress people, the time it takes people to arrive at a parking lot and then be at a mountain lake in the Alps. So let's see, walk through hyperlapse. I think that's it. Let's play that one. So I could combine this with a script. I could, easily just say in 10 or 12 seconds, hey, for €3.50, you can park all day at this high mountain lake in Aachen, Austria. Boom, and be done. And you've got a nice little scene. Whether it's a scene or a moment, that's up to you to decide. But that's a walkthrough, and that's it at its core. If you want to do something a little bit more, again, you can use the Twitter app and record a few different scenes. It's like on the hunt for Mojo gear at the IFA event in Berlin. That's what that sequence will show you. You can even do it in a longer form where you combine several shots. But the idea is that you are the tour guide. So that's a style of video that you can do. So walk pretty easily. You can do it in a short form. You can do it in a longer form. It all works. And those types of videos tend to connect with audiences, mobile viewers. It's more personalized, talking right to the person. You're showing them your point of view, so the POV shot is really important. And it can be really effective. The keys to doing them is that you just have to kind of write a script or in your head or follow a script as you're filming. So you might just make some notes. So you have to record what you're going to say while you're filming it. That's what makes these really easy to edit together, and that's the pro tip for you, rather than trying to write your script later. Do it in the moment. And know that that's the kind of video you're going to do. If you're looking at a pattern, sometimes we talk about shooting patterns. If you wanted to do a walkthrough, we have some language. A PTC is a piece to camera. In other words, that's a selfie, but a video selfie. Okay? You need some neutral shots. That means that don't include your subjects, but are like close-ups. Okay? Neutral shots. And then the POV shots is like the camera moving through the space. In other words, the camera transports the viewer. The camera becomes a character, basically. And then you can incorporate some sound bites from people, and then more close-ups. And if you get those shots, it's really easy to make a walkthrough video. And you can see an example on my YouTube channel. Yeah, Robb Montgomerry. It's Robb with 2 B's at the Smart Film School. So that's like 10 types. Quick hits, kinograms, real people pop-up, cinematics, graphics packages, story cards, video collages, live, long form, all with a phone. And I think Robb Montgomerry, and I can't wait to show you how to use your device to tell more cinematic stories. Here's a list of the apps that I use for each form. Okay? And one of the things that your guys are going to get is you don't have to write all that down, because I'm going to give you access to a Smart Film School course, which will have the walkthroughs of how to use this stuff. That training is always on your phone in video form. Okay? So that's it from me. I can't wait to see you guys in person real soon. So bring a charged up phone, bring your charger, make sure you got a lot of free space to record video and photo, and I've got the apps list for you guys. Okay? and we're going to have a lot of fun. Hey, I have a question for you guys. Obviously, I like to record writing on the sand dunes. Maybe we could do that if I've got some free time. That would be a lot of fun. And if that's the case, I'll bring my Osmo camera, which is a stabilized motion camera. So I'll bring this to Doha. We get out there. It's got a gimbal. It's like turning your smartphone into a drone. There's all kinds of little accessories you can get for your phone when you want to do some more advanced filmmaking. All right. See you guys soon.